What's going on, my friends in the YouTube land? How are you today? Well, I am doing great, considering, because we're trying not to lose our mind here and all this going on here. But anyway, I figured that we would talk about the next video in this whole build process: walls and ceilings, how we did that. Now, we'll touch real quick back on the flooring. I may have touched on that a little bit. Is that when we did the flooring, we did it just like you do in your house, except when I said nothing is level and square in this vehicle, that is the case. It was a little bit, there were some challenges with the flooring because things were rounded and curved, and we had to, you didn't have any perfect squares. Level, well, it's level as it was on the floor, but I think the square part was probably more challenging than the level part when we did the flooring. So it's not perfect. We did the whole van floor, and there were some corners, like some edges. But remember I said, like, when you put on these walls and you put on the floor, you want to keep a little bit of a gap on what you're doing. You don't want things rubbing together and knocking. In the long term, it could have an effect, but a lot of noise, and you don't want that either. So that's things you need to think about when you do that. So we put the flooring in. We put the flooring in just like you would your house, per se. So, excuse me. Lay it down in that way, except you just have to kind of map it as you go along. I mean, I learned a lot about that process from Clancy, that I wasn't real good at doing flooring. I mean, I really don't know how this whole process would have gone without him or somebody who knew about cuts and stuff and what we were going to do with this. But our biggest challenge were the walls and the ceiling on this deal. That was the biggest challenge on that deal. And I touched on that, don't glue anything down, adhesives, you'll have problems, especially your flooring. You want it to float and you want it to shift a little bit. If you're in a moving vehicle, as we say, you're in a moving, like a rolling, let me back up. You're in a rolling earthquake. That's about the best way to put it. So that's what this thing basically is a rolling earthquake. So when we did the walls, the only furring strips we did a little bit of the 1x2 inch, and we only did them up in the top edges right here around the van and in the back there. We didn't do any in the wall. We didn't frame perpendicular down, or my mind has gone blank, but basically we didn't frame walls to square anything off. You can look at this and obviously tell that we didn't square anything off. We didn't feel the need to. The best frame you've got is the van here. The strongest frame you've got is these metal frame in the wall, right over the insulation. So we use that plywood that was just shy of 1/4 of an inch, about between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch, and it was flexible to a certain degree where it would bend the contour of the wall. Very good. It's like that glue-on plywood, what most of these guys are using for their vans. They make it thinner, believe it or not. You probably don't want to go that thin unless you're wanting to do corners and edges where it will bend a little bit better. But just know it's only going to bend so much before this stuff cracks and splits in two, so it breaks. And I think our biggest challenge, and it's not perfect, you can look at it and tell, I've got to cover this edge. We tried to take some trim and double, when I talk about adhesives, the double-sided tape he had didn't work, so you'd have to figure something over that, maybe some caulk and some paint. But this corner here really got us around these edges. It's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. We put some lattice, PVC lattice trim under here because there was insulation up under covering that. But not everything's going to be covered, and it wasn't meant to be. But amazingly, some people have a way of being able to do that. I'm not the woodworker that can do that, but you know how that is. But our cuts and stuff like that were a little challenging. And we had to figure out how we were going to run our trim. Now, I will tell you, the screws we use were these type right here. Like, we use about a 1/2 inch screw to a 9/16. Actually, for the trim on this one's about 1 inch screw we use. The 9/16 were on the lattice. We used about a 9/16 screw for the lattice. We used about a 1 inch on here into the glue-on plywood. And we used about 1 inch maybe on, depends, some places maybe 1.5 inches. on the plywood to the metal. Now, when you get to the metal here, these real thick edges, these double ply parts of your sheet metal, you're going to break a screw if you don't drill that pilot hole well enough, and you may have to go with a shorter screw. And in this case, we use that 9/16 to just kind of hit there and here, and maybe go longer here, where the screw will bite in much better. But the walls were a challenge because we had to figure out how we were going to line them up over here, and we only came down just halfway to where the metal bar is there. The rest of it was the wall panel that came with the van. I just insulated it and put the wall paneling back on. I did the exact same thing with the door here. There was really no need in building a wall panel. That's all preference. To me, I was fine with that because we're going to put the window here, and most of this didn't make much of a difference. It looked fine. And then we covered this with plywood for the inset and cut all that. I still have to touch up paint that when I paint this door. I'm being lazy and kind of putting that off on that door. So, but once we got the walls, we got the ceiling done. Originally, I was going to say we were going to do the ceiling first, but when we looked at it, the walls were a better gauge to know how we were going to do the ceiling. Same thing went for the ceiling. We just had to know how many pieces we were going to use. So I had to get, I'm trying to think if I had to get an extra piece of ply. I think we had enough. I got 8 sheets of this for the inside of this van, and that covered it. We had some extra. So, but we knew we had to cut 1, 2, 3. I had to cut 4 sheets just for the ceiling alone. 4, cut them across. There was a lot of wasted pieces. Just like we talked about with the floor, you're going to have waste. We started with the front, and what I did was right here, I don't know if you can see it. Let me go back over here. Right here where the headliner goes, there's a little ridge that comes up and over. We screwed right in to that headliner, to the metal frame, because that frame was right there. When I talk about it's not perfect, you have insulation showing right here, which is going to happen. I mean, we could have very well cut a piece and gone back a bit. We probably still could do something there, but it's not that important. It really isn't. So we started here, and we're able to take a cut to here where the frame piece is here. Now, you see screws with the lattice, but we have screws up under the lattice. That's why that lattice is trim. It's trim covering those joints between the boards and those screws, so it happens. And what we did was, when we cut each piece, I had already mapped out my wiring. We had to measure out our lighting from the wall to here, and we used one of those circle saws. It was a drill bit with the blades, and you can adjust it. They call them circle saws. They're adjustable, and just cut beautiful, perfect holes in the circumference that we wanted for these lights. And I'm amazed it turned out as well as it did. A little worried they were going to be a little crooked, and I was to a point where I didn't really care to a certain degree, but I'm glad we lined them up the best we could. I think it was good planning on our part on that deal. We decided to do it. Another challenge we ran into, in fact, this wasn't a challenge getting the original lights in there. The challenge was trying to get this run and cut holes for that wire, because we had to bring the wire up. Much more challenging back there. And even the biggest challenge was that backlight we had. When we did that trim back there, that light right there was a challenge, because we had to come up with a wire and come down across the board and get that pulled through. We had to take like a coat hanger or something, or a wire puller, to get that through. And I thought that I was going to have to cut the wire and redo it, but thank God I didn't. And we had to cut slits into the ceiling panel and get that notch to where we could get that light popped in there. We did the same thing with that light as well. We pulled it off the frame and just cut it to width, and there's little tabs on the side of that light where it just popped right back into the wall. Beautiful, and it worked beautifully. And I think that was some of the biggest challenges of just cutting this stuff and trying to measure it. An estimate of how we were going to cut holes to here to measure these, as well as the switch for the wall here, because I didn't want to bury a lot of the wires, only for the switch and the ceiling lights, and maybe those, and that was it. One thing they do tell you is don't bury all your wiring behind the wall. If you want to change something or move something, or if you got to fix a problem, you want to know how to get to that wiring. That's the reason I talked about in electrical, about using 4-conductor marine grade wire, which is like an audio wire. It's flexible. It will handle movement really well. It's shielded very well. And you've got options. You've got 2 more conductors. If you don't use them, you've got them there at each point. And you can pull another light. If I wanted to pull another light, let's say I wanted to run another light or something off of this. Well, this light has 2 more conductors at the fuse panel. I can pull that wire back, label it, and then pull another wire here to extend it and come over. I can extend it from here and come over off of this circuit and run another light or power 12 volt off that. So you have options to do that if you need to do it, which is not a big deal. But trying to remember specific challenges where it was just trying to cut this stuff and get the width and get it up. I think the walls were much harder than the ceiling. It really, once we got it up, everything was cool. We ran into it was a little tough trying to measure our fantastic fan, but having to measure side to side, and just be careful where that 14-inch was how we got this ceiling panel in. When we thought that was going to be, excuse me, I'm sorry, I had to sneeze there. It's that's nothing more than seasonal allergies, folks. But anyway, sorry about that. We just had to be careful how we measured that, and we knew from each end where the points were from the cut here to the back and the side to side. So Clancy again was very good on that, much better than me. Sorry, I don't mean to be babbling, but once we got that, we were able to make sure the wiring was set right here. And then I had this piece right here on the Max Air fan. If you've never installed one, your plastic edge piece, it comes really tall. You have to cut it down to fit the depth of the ceiling to the fan. So because these Max Air fans are designed where there may be more depth in ceilings in RVs or buses or various things, so that's the reason why they do that. The trim, that was our next level. How I picked the trim was a little accidental. We were sitting there thinking, what are we going to do about trim? We didn't know. We didn't know if we were going to take some of the Luan plywood and whether we were going to overlap that to cover joints. I mean, some people I think do that, but some people have different methods of trim. But we started talking about, I was just hung up on PVC. I mean, I was trying to find PVC wall panels. That would have been so cool. And the closest thing I could find was something called polygal panels that they use in greenhouses. There was a guy that actually did that on the ProMaster Build Out forum on Facebook. Did an amazing job on it. But I just don't know if I really wanted to go that route or not. So I had to paint. And I hate painting, but I had to do it. I kept thinking PVC, you don't have to paint it. It cuts easy. And I don't have to worry about, moisture bothering it. So we were looking at his garage door stops at the time, and I was thinking I'd like something like that, but not that rubber mold. Maybe we could cut that off or something wider. And of course Clancy was like, I don't know if that's gonna work, but we'll see. So I went to Lowe's on a mission to figure out what we're gonna do about trim. And I was looking at those garage door stops thinking, I wonder if that rubber molding would work too. No surprise that I couldn't find anybody to help me in Lowe's. No one would help me at all. Not one soul in Lowe's would help me. But I found one guy. He was new. He was in training at the time. His name was Chuck. Go figure. I said, listen, man, I need to know if these things work. This is what it's going into. I've got the vehicle out in the parking lot. Can I take a couple of these and just, like this PVC lattice and stuff, and can I go put it in there and see what it looks like? He said, sure, pull the vehicle up. Let's go do it. So we accidentally stumbled across something that may have worked. And he's like, get that PVC lattice. Get it. And I think it will work. Hold on one second. I've got a noise. I need to investigate. Okay, I'm back. That was a garage door, I believe. weird noises. It's like a horse for a second, and then a squeak. I said, what the hell is that? Anyway, like I said, good old Chuck and I went into the van here and discovered that this might work. And what do you know, accidentally, that's how these things happen, man. PVC lattice and garage door stops for your trim. I've never seen it done in another van, and I guess I might be the verse, which I think is cool, but that posed its challenges as well, but we got through it. Once we started putting up, we knew how it was going to go. Now, we're still up in the air about the garage door stops and the cabinets, the gaps and the angles, but right now it seems to be the best thing that we could do. It looks fine. I'm not worried about it, and basically you're just covering up mechanics and gaps and stuff, and I think that's kind of what the whole purpose of that stuff is to get everything looking more of decor, looking good, just like you would in a house. You don't want to get a house that have no trim and you've got gaps between your drywall. I guess that's all we know that looks good, and it's what you do when you're building houses and building things such as RVs and vans. But anyway, not to babble here, but the walls were our biggest challenge in this build, and we got it done. Again, the PVC lattice and stuff came really helpful when we were doing detail in the trim above the back door here, because that was another challenge after I got the solar panel cables run through and everything to where I needed it. I knew when we were putting that up, I didn't want to have to take that stuff off to get to that stuff again unless I had to. But it worked out. It worked out well. If you have any questions, anybody does, about anything I did in these walls, anything particular, how we cut it, put a comment down below, anything you need on that, and I'll see if I can answer it. But the thing is these cuts were just like anything else. It took a few times to put in. It didn't take just one cut, because you had to go in, you had to kind of put the wall panel up, draw the edge where you were going to cut, and do that. And I think most of the things that we did, it took a few cuts back and forth to do it. I mean, we did it when we cut the edges for the trim on this. These are garage door stops. These are the back side of these garage door stops. We spun them around as trim over in the microwave is something different. That was something else we did. And that's your PVC lattice, which I think looked really good on the microwave. I mean, that cabinet almost looked like it was made with that. It's pretty cool. I can't say that was my idea. That was Clancy's idea. He started getting all artsy and stuff, so I had to let him run with it. So I said, go for it. It's all good. We're going to do it. So, but tools we used, as I stated, that you're going to need, you need a good jigsaw. It's probably the majority of the cuts we made with jigsaw and a skill saw. Jigsaw and skill saw, mostly a jigsaw. You need a good impact drill. Again, you're going to need that impact drill. Be careful when you're screwing these screws into the wall and the ceiling that you don't, crank too hard. You're going to need it at first, but slow it down, because you'll spin out the hole or go right through the plywood if you're not careful, because there's a lot of torque in that and it's really strong. So you're going to need some good straight edges, very good straight edges, things that to cut protractors or what do they call them, contractors, triangles. You're going to need things that are straight edges to square things off. That's just one of those things, if you don't know, like me, a lot about carpentry, get somebody to help you. Even if it costs you money, you're going to have to get somebody to help you if you don't know. Another thing you'll need is a good belt sander. You need a good sander around these edges and sand this stuff off. I didn't really foresee that when I started this build. Small things you don't think about, but you need those things. You need it. You're going to need a really good set of drill bits. You're going to need a good adjustable hole saw, what I call it, a circle saw, like we did these lights with. You're going to need that stuff. You're going to need that stuff for a lot of things. You're going to need routing bits. good drill bits of different sizes, all the way up to a 1/2 inch or more. You're going to need these drill bits, and I will tell you, based on experience, that you're going to snap some drill bits. We did it when we were drilling the brackets into the solar panels, but you're going to snap them when you're doing these walls. And if you use wool insulation, I'm going to tell you, wool insulation wraps around those bits and around those screws when you're screwing stuff in or in and out. Just be patient with that. It's going to pull insulation through the hole, which is not that big a deal, but it can kind of be a pain in the butt when you're trying to back that screw or that drill bit out. Small problem, nothing major. But you're going to need these tools, and you'll need to your paint of your choice. But I say you need a really good primer that holds off mold and mildew before you do paint these panels, if you do use plywood. I recommend that highly on these walls, at least. I don't foresee as a lot of moisture will be in here, but in RVs it's common. Just make sure that, you know, the paint has a lot of that in there, but you want to go ahead and it'll be easier to paint it when you prime it, depending on what color you use. Some people use a stain, some people don't paint at all. They're good with the natural wood grain of these things, and that's okay. Put a good polyurethane on there. That's all I can tell you. A good coat of polyurethane can really protect that from actually penetrating that wood. Any kind of, excuse me, nose. Any kind of a wood surface, you need to put some sort of coating on it. It'll be a lot easier. Or you're going to get a lot of dirt in the wood and a lot of problems. Mold and mildew can be one of them. Next video, I want to talk about the cabinetry and stuff and what I did on that dude. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about where I got these window coverings. And as I mentioned in my last video, I'm still thinking about... I'm probably leaning about putting a bench down here instead of just the desk and getting a lagoon mount table. I'm thinking about now how to frame that bench up and do that. So let's just do my research and do it and see what I can do on that deal. But we'll talk about the cabinets. I went to IKEA for that. We're going to talk about that and the window coverings. Got a call from the window people yesterday. I may have mentioned this already. When the window came in California, he said the whole pallet of windows were broken. He said, it's going to be the end of April before they come in. And I said, listen, there's no hurry, man. Even if I got the window within the next 30 days, I couldn't get anyone to install it. And all the non-essential businesses are shut down. I wouldn't be able to get it installed. So no hurry. Just when they come in, shoot it my way. So it's going to be another month before I get my window. But that's not a... There's no hurry for that. It's going to be okay. So we'll talk further about that when we do that. I'll talk about why I chose the counter I did and everything else. So anyway, I'm jumping off here. This thing is pushing 25-30 minutes. Sorry for the babbling. I'm just trying to figure out exactly not what I wanted to talk about and not leave something out. So, but anyway, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Be cool. Bye.